Hi, I'm Leslie White. I'm the Holocaust Studies Advisor and Senior Educator for OFEC. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey of Jewish immigrants into America. So, session one is where we'll begin. There are four sessions in this series. So, session one is called Arrival and Settlement. So, as I mentioned, we start with arrival and settlement and the reasons behind why America or pre America was so appealing to immigrants. In the early days, shortly after its independence, the founders imagined America as a land of religious tolerance. As we know, the original settlers in America were freeing religious persecution in England. So they came over so that they could worship the way that they wanted and practice their faith in the way that they wanted. So President Washington expressed a warm welcome to American Jews in a letter to the Hebrew congregations of Newport, Rhode Island in 1790, promising that the U.S. gives bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. This letter was seen as a precursor to the First Amendment guaranteeing religious freedom. So, this is what made America so appealing to those who were coming over. The land of riches, the streets paved with gold kind of thing. So the very first Jewish immigrants to the United States arrived in 1654. So it, of course, is pre America. And among them were Sephardic Jews, Jews of Spanish or Portuguese descent. They were fleeing hardship with the Portuguese Inquisition and expulsion. So they really didn't have anywhere to go. They were looking for a more permanent residence. Jewish immigration continues 1880 through 1924. And this is where we see a lot of the Ashkenazi Jews, who are the Jews of Eastern European descent. Germany, immigration starts to escalate around 1907 because of the pogroms in Russia. So the pogroms were violent attacks on Jews by local non Jewish populations. And 1903 to 1906 was the most violent period and led to increased immigration in America. So, I don't know if students have seen this, but Fiddler on the Roof, they feature a Russian pogrom. Also, too, in the film An American Tale, the mouse family that is coming to America, they are fleeing the pogroms in Russia. So they are, Russian immigrants that will soon be in America building a new life. So the pogroms, state sponsored or state encouraged attacks, violent attacks against Jews. This is the Jewish immigration map. So what we're seeing here from 1880 to 1914, um, the countries of Europe, Russia, very heavy immigration, significant immigration, down south, Africa, Argentina. Here we have the countries of origin over here. So a lot of the immigrants were coming from Germany, Russia, Austria, Hungary, and Romania. They were headed to places like New York, Boston, Chicago, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. So their first stop when arriving in America was Ellis Island, and Ellis Island was this mecca for immigration, and everybody speaking a different language and everybody getting inspected and checked before they were cleared to enter America. So it's located in New York Harbor, and millions, like I said, arrived there daily. So the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society provided translations, medical screenings, and other assistance for these Jewish immigrants. And of course, as mentioned before, 1907 was the peak of the immigration because of the violent attacks that were happening in Russia. So you can see from these pictures, they have many, many staff members and long lines of people waiting to get checked and cleared. Emma Lazarus, she was a woman who was born in New York City, and one of the most famous Jewish authors. But really, what skyrocketed her to fame was something that she wrote for the Statue of Liberty. In her life, she advocated for Jewish refugees, argued for the creation of a Jewish homeland, even before Zionism was actually a concept or acknowledged worldwide. She was commissioned, of course, to write this poem for the brand new Statue of Liberty to help raise funds for the pedestal that she would be standing on. So Emma Lazarus wrote the new Colossus. And to this day, it speaks to immigrants, people from other lands, people with ancestry from other lands. So it would be a really good opportunity to hear from students and ask them if they know where their ancestors came from, or if they know the origins of their families, or if they were migrating from the east maybe to the west or vice versa. A little bit about their history would make this really personal. So she writes, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." And again, that's one of the most famous passages that we know from the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor on Liberty Island, of course. This man, Israel Zangwill, coined the phrase the melting pot. And, this has to do with, our identities. And again, your students, maybe their ancestry, or if they know what countries their family and ancestors came from. America was seen as, a melting pot of all of these races, religions, backgrounds, everybody coming together, everybody fleeing a hardship, and eventually, as the tale or the myth goes, you'd find success in America. So Israel said the following: "Understand that America is God's crucible, the great melting pot where all the races of Europe are melting and reforming. Here you stand, good folk, think I, when I see them at Ellis Island. Here you stand in your 50 groups, your 50 languages and histories, and your 50 blood hatreds and rivalries. But you won't be long like that, brothers, for these are the fires of God you've come to. Germans and Frenchmen, Irishmen and Englishmen, Jews and Russians, into the crucible with you all. God is making the American." So the American is a mix of all of these things, and it's a wonderful new creation at the turn of the 20th century. So immigration often comes with great bliss and hardship. And what we call this is the push pull factors of immigration. So the push factors are pointing to leaving due to poverty, fear, disasters, unemployment, these environmental, social, economic, political strife that these people are going to. The pull, what attracts them to, America and these other lands is safety, opportunity, stability, and most of all, freedom. So the same factors, the environmental, social, economic, political, they are the pull that's driving these immigrants to the land. So the push factors encourage a population to leave its home due to, in this case, anti Semitism, pogroms, violence, poverty, or political upheaval and conflicts. And the pull factors drawing the population to another area or place like America, joining family, social mobility, rights, and freedoms, be they religious, economic, what have you. So, why stay? Why did they stay? Well, they probably traveled with a lot of their family. Um, they may not have wanted to leave behind friends, family, their home. It's really, really hard. Sometimes I ask students if they can remember a time in their lives when they had to move. And even if it's moving houses, moving apartments, or moving cities, maybe even countries, maybe ask them to think about what they were feeling. How does this affect them emotionally? Is it hard? Who did you have to say goodbye to? And what were you looking forward to once you got to your new place? They often fear losing traditions and identity. So think about how your location, where you are, where you're from, impacts who you are, or the you that you put out there every day. The uncertainty over the quality of life. They may not like it where they end up, or they may not have the same life. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. They have to give it a try. They have to settle and try to make a new life for themselves. And of course, the inability to afford the journey. So maybe talk to them about the price of immigrating to the United States. What did that mean for their financial situation? Did they know people there? Could they get a job? Could they sell things? Did they want to invent things? Did they have dreams or hopes of being more than they were at the place where they were leaving? So, this is a great lesson in identity, remembering the past, but also looking to the future and how the Jews will make an imprint on society and religious freedom and everything that George Washington imagined for America.